You ever walk into someone's house and you immediately get that weird feeling like something happened here? Yeah, probably not. I mean, how many of us have been the subject of a horror movie? Hereditary doesn't wait for the monsters to show up though. Something's already wrong. And I'm not talking about the grief. You've probably already seen it. You remember the pole, the mini furniture, the crown. You've heard the takes, you know the analysis. You get it. But what we're digging into is something a little different. The thing underneath all of that. The part you felt, even if you couldn't quite explain it. The reason this movie stayed with you even after the scary stuff stopped. Because Hereditary is unsettling in a way most horror movies aren't. And no, this isn't a story about a family falling apart. It's about a system that needs people to fall apart and finds the perfect family for the job. So if Hereditary made you feel uneasy and you couldn't put your finger on it as to why exactly, welcome to the Horror Within. It starts at a funeral, but nobody really looks like they're mourning. Steve's doing his husband duties, Peter is zoning out like a teenager would, Charlie just drawing. Even the eulogy sounds like a rough draft that Anne had barely time to prepare and didn't bother taking a second look at. And you realize quickly that death isn't the disruption. The disconnect was already here. This house doesn't feel like something got taken out of it. It feels like something essential was never installed in the first place. The family moves around like strangers with assigned seating. Annie works in total isolation, sculpting these microscopic replicas of a life no one else really seems to remember. Charlie barely speaks, she just watches constantly. And Steve, he's basically HR, trying to make sure no one files a complaint before bedtime. And sure, there's no big drama yet, no screaming, no slamming doors, but there's no warmth either. It's like watching people in a shared Airbnb who just found out they're related. So now they gotta hang, I guess. And at times when Peter says mom, it feels fabricated. Like his tongue is almost not used to calling her that. Every role here feels miscast. And I'm not talking in an actor's sense. I mean emotionally. The actors did great, whatever. But you know who didn't do great? The characters. The parents don't feel like leaders, and the children don't feel protected, and no one really feels seen. And when the real horror begins, when the cracks split wide open, there is nothing left to hold on to. Honestly, was there ever anything to hold on to? Because the house felt hollow from the moment the movie started. Whatever was supposed to hold this family together, it wasn't grief that took it. It just never existed. There's something in Annie that just never quite clicked. Walked right into that one. But seriously, you can feel it. She's trying to do all the right things, like giving a funeral speech, building tiny rooms for her project, cooking dinner for the family, but it all feels shifted. Like she's checking off a list of what a mother is supposed to do instead of actually being there. Remember the scene where Annie is standing next to Peter's bed and tells him that she never wanted to be his mother? Of course you do. You gasped. I gasped too. And Peter starts crying like he's 7 years old again. He says, "You tried to kill me." And then everything starts burning. They catch on fire. Except they don't. And he wakes up. It was a dream, right? None of that was said out loud, right? But that doesn't mean it wasn't real. Okay, here's the thing. We don't ever really get an explanation whether that happened or not. It might have been a dream, it might have not been a dream. But in this house, there are enough cracks for the truth to continually leak out of. And the truth always leaks out. It always finds a way. It always finds a crack to crawl out of. So the ugliest of thoughts, oh, no. They don't stay buried. They just wait for you to fall asleep and then they spill. And it's not hate between them. It's fear. Fear of what they might bring out in each other. Fear that love for them is something that only exists in theory. Perhaps that's why Annie spends so much time building her little dollhouse world. Not to escape, but to edit. She can't control what actually happened, so she rebuilds it cleaner, quieter, without the mess of emotions. And I get it, because I try to do the same. I try to keep this video controlled, quiet, but there is always a little chaos in it. Hard to get away from that completely. Subscribing and maybe liking the video does help with the ritual of editing, I mean. Anyway, she even ends up recreating the accident. Like she's trying to hold the pain in place long enough to understand it. And yeah, it's disturbing, but it also kind of makes sense. She can't grieve properly because the grief isn't clean. It's tangled up in resentment, guilt, exhaustion, decades of family rot. And you get the sense that she's just overwhelmed by the idea of being needed. Annie doesn't shut people out because she doesn't care. She does it because she knows she's not okay, and she doesn't want to infect anyone else. But of course, that's not how this works. The silence is the infection, and now the whole house is full of it. Love exists here, somewhere, I guess, but it doesn't reach the surface. It's like a signal trying to break through, but the receiver's antenna is busted. Nobody knows how to say what they mean, and nobody knows how to ask for what they need. So they just sit there and disconnect. Charlie dies early. Way too early. And yeah, it's shocking, but also strange. This isn't because she was a kid. It's because we barely knew her, you know? I mean, she wasn't built up like a real character. She never got a chance. She was removed from the board before the game even began. And that's the first crack. The moment something doesn't feel right, with the way it doesn't hit like it should. Because Charlie was already claimed, promised to something else before she ever had the chance to be her own person. It kind of explains everything. The way she acts, the creepy drawings, the way she stares without blinking. It's not weird kid stuff. It's more like she shouldn't be here. Like she was born with the wrong soul inside of her. She's not haunted, right? Not exactly anyway. And her possession is only mild. Like she's in there. Even if there is something else too. But the reason for her to be here, the entirety of her existence, is to serve a purpose. And when that purpose is done, she's gone. That's what makes it unsettling. Charlie wasn't taken, she was only a vessel, and now is returned. And Annie? Not really a mother, more like a middleman. So when Charlie evidently dies, it doesn't feel like a twist. It doesn't feel random. Just a normal, expected event for the story to progress, which makes Annie's grief not about losing a daughter, but about realizing she never had one in the first place. There's a moment in Hereditary that's somehow louder than anything else, any other scene in the movie, and it's dead silent. It's right after the crash, when Peter just sits there, hands on the wheel, eyes forward, no screaming, no crying, not even a breath, just silence. And it's so long, it's uncomfortable, long enough that it stops feeling like a reaction and starts feeling like something else. The shock, the numbness, it's all part of some sort of ritual. Charlie is gone instantly, and Peter, whatever was holding him together, just breaks open in that silence. Not in a dramatic way, but in a way that feels like something just moved out and made space for something else to come in. It doesn't feel like a death scene. It feels more like an exorcism, but not for Charlie, for Peter, because for the rest of the movie, that emptiness never really goes away. It follows him, haunts him everywhere. The horror here wasn't the accident. It was what the accident unlocked. A crack in the body. He's next. And somewhere inside, he already knows it. Let's watch the meat. Okay, so there aren't any ghosts around, no Ouija boards or candles. But this dinner, it might as well be a seance. Because what's sitting in between them isn't just the food. It's everything that they've been bottling up for years, not even since the funeral. Grief, resentment, blame. It's like this fruit that someone said, I might eat it tomorrow, and just left it at the countertop in the kitchen. And it just kept rotting there and rotting for years. And now, yeah, it's starting to stink. Peter uses the secret Latin words to begin the seance. And it's not some mumbo-jumbo you hear in horror movies. It's, you okay, Mom? And here we go. The spirits have received the message and they have arrived at the table. Annie doesn't get possessed or anything, but she's livid, goes in, And this isn't your typical angry mom yelling. This is some real unfiltered core meltdown mom. In hindsight, I think Peter would have rather a demon have entered his mom instead. Nope, I take that back. While both are spitting hate and blaming each other, the dad just watches. It's ugly and feels so real you kind of want to pause the movie, but there's something else happening here. A possession in disguise, an emotional one. This scene actually mirrors the real seance later in the film perfectly. You know the one, with the glass, candlelight, and Annie's super creepy voice. But here, at this dinner table, whatever is being summoned is no evil spirit, or even Charlie. It's something inside of Annie that she's been holding back for years. And Peter? I mean, what can he do? Fight her? Nah, it's a lost battle. He knows, so he just takes it, crumbles. And you can tell from the look on his face, he's scared of his own mother. There's something sick and backwards about this family dynamic that just feels disturbing. Like, the mom wants to protect her son, but also destroy him. The dad wants to keep the peace, but at the same time, disappear. The son wants to be forgiven, but also kind of punished. So yeah. This isn't just a confrontation, it's a ritual. One that you yourself might have experienced at some point in your life, where the tension is so high, putting a piece of vegetable in your mouth and chewing it feels like a death sentence. And by the end of all this, everyone at that table feels a little less like themselves. There's something weird about the way this house looks. And I'm not talking about creepy or haunted weird. Something feels fundamentally wrong. Like someone built it for people to live in and then realized, wait, I forgot to make it livable. What? You can even see it in the lighting. It never makes sense. During the day, the house is not necessarily dark, but not lit either. Sunlight is not allowed to enter. Okay, fine. But at night, somehow it's bright outside. There is this artificial white light that makes it feel like it's early morning. Time doesn't seem to move here. It's always almost morning or almost midnight, just frozen between moments. And light isn't this safe haven either. Peter's bed is always getting hit by light. But it's not protective. It feels more like a mark than safety. This is basically a dollhouse, scaled up in size so these people, or moving mannequins, can live in it. A display that's been carefully arranged and frozen in the perfect amount of pain. Once you see this, you realize that this place was never theirs. It always belonged to him. This is a subtle one. You know those moments when someone walks into a room and in the background, there is this door just slightly open and your brain kind of goes, wait, was that always like that? Hereditary does that a lot. It's never obvious, but it just secretly shows you something uncanny and leaves it there. No dramatic music, no spotlight, nothing seems to be happening, but something is wrong. That's the trick. It's not building toward the horror. The horror is already happening. It just hasn't introduced itself yet. There's something so much worse about that because it means you missed it. It means it was already watching you. This is where you realize you're not watching a haunting, you're watching a setup. But the fact that you didn't notice means you aren't simply watching either. You are being set up. It's like Paranormal Activity in reverse. You're lying in bed and someone is watching you sleep. And once you wake up and rewind the tape, it's already too late. All of it started long before this movie began. Only now are the cracks starting to show. And that open door you noticed or didn't notice, it's not opening for you, it's opening onto you. Because someone or something was already inside and it's been watching you watch this family fall apart just to see how long it would take for you to realize you are in the dollhouse too. So this is how it ends. Peter just stands there, still, quiet, almost peaceful, basically emptied out. The cult kneels, the music plays, and you realize no one's fighting anymore. Not him, not Annie, not anyone. Because whatever this was, it's already happened. And now this isn't a battle, it's just a cleanup. And the horror here wasn't that Peter got possessed or everyone died. It was that it took All of this, all that loss, all that silence, all those moments where you begged someone to talk, to hug, to just notice the other person, just for a crown to be placed on someone who doesn't even look like he knows what a crown is. So yeah, grief has a shape, and in Hereditary, it's a crown, but it's not sitting on someone's head. It's sitting on the wreckage of everyone who didn't make it. At this point, you might be wondering what all of this even was. Was it grief? A curse? Some generational mental breakdown passed down like a family recipe? Maybe, but it's also something harder to pin down. Something that sticks with you long after the credits roll. Because Hereditary doesn't chase you. It doesn't pop out from the dark. It just kind of stays right under your skin. And maybe that's because it's not really about demons, or death, or even horror in the usual sense. It's about how pain reshapes people, silently, over the years, until there is not much left to fight back with. It's about being born into something that's already in motion, a family, a system, a pattern, and realizing you never had a say in how your story goes. A house full of people, none of whom ever really saw each other. And by the time anyone tried to reach out, it was already over. That's the part that sticks. We followed the story, we saw the rituals, but we were never outside of them. What was Charlie? What exactly broke Annie? What was the reason? What did Peter actually become? We don't get real answers. We just get a treehouse, a ritual, and a crown, and a long silence that kind of dares you to move on. So if something still feels off, if the house feels cold, if the grief doesn't fade, that's not a glitch. You're still in it. You've just watched Horror Within Hereditary. Thank you so much.